I still remember the exact moment my world collapsed. I was sitting in my favorite coffee shop, the one where I'd sketched out my first business plan 2 years earlier, when my phone buzzed with an email from a law firm I'd never heard of. The subject line read, "Cease and desist. Intellectual property violation." My hand started shaking before I even opened it. "Dear Ms. Harper Chen," it began, "our client has brought to our attention that you are unlawfully using proprietary business concepts, methodologies, and intellectual property that rightfully belong to Eden Chen of Eden's Wellness Solutions."
Eden.
My sister Eden. I read the words 3 times before they sank in. My sister was claiming that my wellness coaching business, the one I'd built from nothing over the past 18 months, was actually hers. That I'd stolen her idea. That I owed her damages in the amount of $150,000. The coffee shop suddenly felt like it was spinning. Other customers were laughing, typing on laptops, living their normal lives while mine was being ripped apart by legal language I barely understood. How do you process the moment when someone you've loved your entire life decides to destroy you? I called Eden immediately. My fingers could barely dial her number. Harper. She sounded surprised, but not guilty. Never guilty. What the hell is this? I was whispering, but it felt like screaming. You're suing me? You're actually suing me? I tried to handle this privately, she said, her voice taking on that cold, corporate tone she used when she wanted to sound important. But you wouldn't listen. Listen to what? You never said anything about. I told you about my wellness coaching idea 2 years ago. Remember? At Mom's birthday dinner? You said it was brilliant. Then you just took it. The memory hit me like a slap. Yes, she'd mentioned wanting to be a life coach. For about 5 minutes. Between complaining about her marketing job and asking me to split the dinner bill she'd run up ordering the most expensive wine. But that conversation had nothing to do with my business. Nothing. Eden, we talked about completely different things. My business model, my certifications, my client base, none of that came from you. That's not how I remember it. Those 6 words changed everything. Because I realized in that moment that my sister, the person who'd been my maid of honor, who'd helped me move apartments 4 times, who'd cried with me when Dad died, genuinely believed she was the victim here. She'd rewritten history in her mind so completely that she actually thought I'd stolen from her. I have documentation, she continued. Emails, texts, witnesses. My lawyer says I have a strong case. Your lawyer? I was still processing the fact that she'd hired an attorney before even talking to me. Eden, this is insane. We're sisters. Exactly. Which is why I thought I could trust you. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, trying to understand what had just happened. Around me, the coffee shop continued its gentle hum of productivity and normalcy. Someone was ordering a latte. A couple was arguing quietly about weekend plans. A businessman was taking a call about quarterly projections. And I was learning that my sister had decided to wage war against me. The worst part wasn't the legal threat, though that was terrifying enough. It was the realization that Eden had been planning this. The cease and desist letter was professionally written, thoroughly researched, and legally sound. This wasn't a spontaneous fit of jealousy. She'd been building a case against me for weeks, maybe months, while still texting me about family dinners and asking to borrow my car. How do you fight someone who knows all your vulnerabilities? Who is there for every failure, every moment of self-doubt, every time you almost gave up? My sister knew exactly how to hurt me because she'd been collecting ammunition her entire life. I looked around the coffee shop one more time, memorizing this moment, because I knew everything was about to change. My business, my family, my entire sense of who I could trust, it was all about to be tested in ways I'd never imagined. The strangest part was how quiet it was. You'd think the moment your life explodes would be loud, dramatic, filled with sirens and shouting. Instead, it was just me, a lukewarm cappuccino, and the soft ping of my phone as more emails started arriving from Eden's lawyer. I took a screenshot of the cease and desist letter, not because I wanted to remember it, but because I knew I'd need proof later that this really happened. That my own sister had really done this to me. That was the moment I stopped being naive about family loyalty. That was the moment I learned that blood doesn't always mean protection. And that was the moment my real education began. I should probably start at the beginning, back when Eden and I were still sisters in every sense of the word. Back when I thought family meant something. I'm Harper, 31 years old, and up until 6 months ago, I believed my biggest problem was building a sustainable client base for my wellness coaching practice. I'd spent 2 years getting certified, studying everything from nutrition to cognitive behavioral therapy, pouring my savings into courses and conferences. My apartment had become a shrine to self-improvement books and vision boards. Eden is 3 years older and has always been the golden child. Marketing director at a tech startup, designer wardrobe, perfectly curated Instagram feed. She's the one who remembers everyone's birthdays, organizes family gatherings, and somehow always knows exactly what to say to make mom proud. I've spent my entire life trying to measure up to her effortless success. But here's what I didn't understand until it was too late. Eden has never been able to stand watching me succeed at anything. When we were kids, she'd help me with school projects by taking them over completely. When I got accepted to college, she spent weeks pointing out how much debt I'd accumulate. When I got married, she gave a maid of honor speech that somehow managed to be more about her than about me. I thought it was just her way of being protective, of trying to save me from disappointment. I was wrong. The first red flag should have been her reaction when I announced I was starting my own business. We were at Sunday dinner at Mom's house, and I'd finally worked up the courage to share my plans. I'd been coaching friends informally for months, helping them with everything from career transitions to relationship issues. People kept telling me I had a gift for it. I'm thinking of getting certified as a wellness coach, I said, passing the mashed potatoes. I've been looking into programs, and I think I could really help people. Mom immediately lit up. Harper, that's wonderful. You've always been so good at listening, so intuitive about what people need. But Eden's fork stopped halfway to her mouth.
Wellness coaching?
Isn't that market pretty saturated? I've done my research, I said, trying to keep my voice confident. There's definitely demand, especially for specialized approaches. What kind of specialized approaches? Eden's tone was casual, but I caught something underneath it. Something sharp. I explained my vision, combining traditional life coaching with mindfulness practices and practical skill building. I wanted to help people who felt stuck, who had the motivation to change, but didn't know how to break their patterns. I'd already sketched out potential workshops, online courses, even a retreat concept. That's interesting, Eden said slowly. Really interesting. At the time, I thought she was being supportive. I didn't recognize the look in her eyes. I didn't understand that she was already calculating how to make my dream her own. 3 weeks later, Eden called me excited about a new side project. I've been thinking about what you said at dinner, she said. About helping people change their lives. I think I want to get into coaching too. I was thrilled. That's amazing. We could brainstorm together, maybe even collaborate on some projects. Maybe, she said, but her voice was distant. I'm thinking more about executive coaching though. Business, leadership. That kind of thing. It seemed harmless enough. We were going to be in different niches, different markets. If anything, I thought it would bring us closer together, give us something new to share. But then she started asking questions. Lots of questions. What certification program are you using? How are you planning to structure your pricing? What's your marketing strategy? Who's your target demographic? I answered everything openly because she was my sister. I shared my business plan, my financial projections, even the names of potential clients I was already talking to. When she asked to see my course materials, I sent them immediately. When she wanted to know about my website developer, I gave her his contact information. I thought we were building something together. I thought she was genuinely interested in supporting my journey. The warning signs were all there, but I was too trusting to see them. Like when she started using phrases from my business plan in her own conversations. Or when she suddenly became an expert on wellness topics she'd never shown interest in before. Or when she began name-dropping coaches and authors I'd introduced her to, claiming she discovered them independently. I've been reading Brené Brown, she'd tell people at parties. Really fascinating stuff about vulnerability and shame resilience. I'd given her my annotated copies of Brené Brown's books 3 months earlier. But the moment that should have stopped me cold was when she started positioning herself as the expert in our family conversations. Suddenly, Eden was the one giving advice about mindfulness and goal setting. She was the one mom turned to when she needed perspective on a problem. She was the one who seemed to have all the answers about personal growth and life transformation. Eden's been helping me think through some career stuff my cousin mentioned at a family barbecue. She's got such insight into these things. I stood there holding my potato salad, watching my sister glow under the praise for wisdom she'd learned from my textbooks. "Where did you learn all this?" I asked her later, when we were alone. "Oh, she said vaguely. "I've always been interested in psychology. I guess I just have a natural instinct for helping people." That night, I went home and looked at my business plan with new eyes. I started to wonder if maybe I was being naive. Maybe the wellness coaching market really was too saturated. Maybe I was in over my head. Maybe Eden was right to be concerned about my chances of success. That's how it starts, isn't it? The doubt creeps in so slowly, you don't notice it at first. The person you trust most in the world plants tiny seeds of uncertainty, and before you know it, you're questioning everything you thought you knew about yourself. I should have trusted my instincts. I should have recognized the signs of someone who was getting ready to steal my life. Instead, I kept sharing. I kept trusting. I kept believing that family meant loyalty. I was about to learn how wrong I was. The first real betrayal came on a Tuesday morning in March, exactly 8 weeks after I'd officially launched Harper's Path Wellness. I was finally starting to feel like a real business owner. I had 12 regular clients, a workshop scheduled for the following month, and enough momentum that I'd been able to quit my part-time administrative job. I was reviewing my client notes when my phone rang. It was Sarah Mitchell, a potential client who'd reached out the week before about anxiety coaching.
"Hi, Harper," she
said, sounding uncomfortable. "I'm calling about our consultation session tomorrow." "Of course. I'm looking forward to it. Did you have questions about the intake process?" "Actually, I need to cancel. I'm sorry, but I've decided to work with someone else." My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice professional. "I understand. Can I ask what changed your mind?" I'm always looking for ways to improve my approach. There was a long pause. "Well, I got a call from Eden Chin yesterday. She said she was your business partner and that there had been some changes to your program. She offered to work with me directly at a discounted rate." I felt the blood drain from my face. "I'm sorry, what did you say?" "Eden Chen?" "She said she was co-founder of Harper's Path Wellness. She explained that you two were restructuring and that she'd be taking over most of the client work because she has more experience. She seemed really knowledgeable about my specific needs." My hands were shaking so badly, I could barely hold the phone. "Sarah, I need to be very clear about something. Eden is not my business partner. She has no connection to my company whatsoever. She's not qualified to provide coaching services, and she has no right to contact my clients." "Oh my God," Sarah whispered. "I'm so sorry." She seemed so professional, so legitimate. She knew details about your program, about the consultation we'd scheduled. I thought. "What exactly did she tell you?" "She said you've been having some personal issues that were affecting your work, that she was stepping in to maintain quality control. She offered to meet with me for the same price as your initial consultation, but said she could provide more comprehensive services because of her corporate background." I was pacing now, trying to process what I was hearing. Eden had somehow gotten access to my client list and was actively poaching them. She was using information I'd shared with her to undermine my business, while positioning herself as the more qualified alternative. "Sarah, I need you to know that everything she told you is a lie. I don't have any business partners. I haven't had any personal issues affecting my work. And Eden is not qualified to provide coaching services to anyone." "I believe you," Sarah said quietly. God, I feel so stupid. But Harper, she was very convincing. She had a whole pitch about integrated wellness solutions and corporate coaching methodologies. She even mentioned specific things about stress management that really resonated with me. Things I'd taught her, approaches I'd developed, techniques I'd spent months refining. "I'm going to figure this out," I told Sarah. If you're still interested in working together, I'd like to honor our original appointment. Yes, absolutely. I'm so sorry this happened. After I hung up, I sat in my kitchen trying to understand what was happening. This wasn't just sibling rivalry or professional jealousy. This was sabotage. Eden was systematically trying to destroy my business. I called her immediately. Harper, how are you? She sounded bright, cheerful, completely normal. What the hell do you think you're doing? I was beyond trying to sound calm. I'm sorry, what are you talking about? You called my client. You told her you were my business partner and that you were taking over my company. Oh, Sarah Mitchell? Eden's voice didn't change at all. I was just trying to help. Help? You lied to her. You told her I was having personal problems. Well, aren't you? You seemed pretty stressed last time we talked. I thought if I could handle some of your overflow, it might take some pressure off you. I was speechless. She was gaslighting me so smoothly, so confidently, that for a moment I almost believed her version of events. Eden, you're not qualified to provide coaching services. You don't have certifications, you don't have training, you don't have a business license. What you did was illegal. Illegal? She laughed, a sound I'd heard 1,000 times, but never recognized as cruel before. Harper, you're being dramatic. I was just having a conversation with someone who needed help. You solicited my client and offered to undercut my prices. I offered to help someone at a rate I thought was fair. If your prices are too high, that's not my fault. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. She wasn't even pretending to feel guilty. How did you get her contact information? I don't remember. Maybe you mentioned her name? Maybe she found me online? Does it matter? It mattered because I kept my client information in a password-protected file that only I had access to. Unless, did you go through my laptop when you were at my apartment last week? Harper, you're being paranoid. This is exactly the kind of emotional instability I was worried about. There it was. The moment I realized my sister wasn't just trying to compete with me, she was trying to make me doubt my own sanity. I want you to call Sarah back and tell her the truth. Tell her you're not qualified to work with her and that you had no right to contact her. I'm not calling anyone back. If you can't handle a little competition, maybe you're not cut out for this business. Competition. I was screaming now. You're not competing with me. You're stealing from me. I'm not stealing anything. Ideas can't be owned, Harper. If I'm better at this than you are, that's not my fault. The line went dead. I sat there staring at my phone, trying to process what had just happened. My sister had just declared war on my business, and she was acting like I was the one being unreasonable. But the worst part was the seed of doubt she'd planted. What if I was being paranoid? What if this was just an innocent misunderstanding? What if I was the one who was emotionally unstable? That's how psychological manipulation works. It makes you question everything you know to be true, including your own perceptions. I spent the rest of the day going through my client files, checking my laptop's access logs, trying to figure out how Eden had gotten Sarah's information. But I couldn't find any evidence of unauthorized access, which meant either I was wrong about what had happened, or Eden was much more skilled at this than I'd realized. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying the conversation, analyzing every word, trying to figure out if I'd misunderstood something fundamental. By morning, I'd almost convinced myself that maybe I was overreacting. Maybe this really was just a misunderstanding. That's when I got the second call. The second call came at 7:30 a.m. on Wednesday. I was still in my pajamas, trying to convince myself that maybe I'd overreacted about Sarah Mitchell, when my phone rang. The caller ID showed my business number. Someone was calling the main line. Harper's Path Wellness, this is Harper. I answered, trying to sound professional despite my exhaustion. Hi, is this Eden Chin? The voice was unfamiliar, a middle-aged woman with a slight accent. No, this is Harper Chin. Eden isn't. Who is this? Oh, I'm sorry.
I'm Maria Santos.
I signed up for your workshop next month. The one about overcoming perfectionism? I got an email yesterday saying the location had changed and that Eden would be conducting the session instead. I wanted to confirm the new address. My blood turned to ice. I'm sorry, what email? I didn't send any email about location changes. It came from your business email address. It said Harper's Path Wellness was expanding and that Eden Chin would be handling all group sessions going forward. It seemed legitimate. I was already pulling up my laptop, frantically checking my email account. Maria, I need to be very clear, I never sent that email. Eden is not affiliated with my business in any way. She's not qualified to conduct workshops, and she has no authority to make changes to my programs.
Oh.
No, Maria said quietly. I was really looking forward to the workshop. The email was so professional, it never occurred to me. What exactly did it say? It explained that you'd brought Eden on as a senior facilitator because of her extensive corporate background. It said the workshop would be more comprehensive now, with additional modules on leadership development and professional growth. It actually sounded more valuable than what I'd originally signed up for. I was scrolling through my sent folder, my drafts, my trash. Nothing. Either Eden had somehow accessed my email account and deleted the evidence, or she created a fake email address that looked like mine. Maria, I promise you the original workshop is still happening as scheduled. Same time, same location. I designed every aspect of it myself, and I'm the only one who will be facilitating it. But what about the email? How could someone use your business email address if they weren't authorized? That was the question I was desperately trying to answer. I pulled on my email settings, checking for forwarding rules, unauthorized access, anything that might explain how Eden had done this. I'm going to figure this out, I told Maria. Can you forward me the email you received? I need to see exactly what was sent. Of course. I'll send it right now. When the forwarded email arrived, I felt sick. It was from an address that looked almost identical to mine, harperspathwellness@gmail.com instead of harperspathwellness@gmail.com. The difference was so subtle, I had to look twice to spot it. She'd replaced the lowercase L with an uppercase I. But the content was what really shook me. The email was written in my voice, using my terminology, referencing specific details from my workshop curriculum. It even included my business logo and the same email signature I'd been using for months. Dear Maria, it began, I'm excited to share some wonderful news about your upcoming workshop. Harper's Path Wellness is expanding to better serve our growing community, and I'm thrilled to introduce you to Eden Chen, our new senior facilitator. The email went on to describe Eden's extensive background in corporate wellness and executive coaching, and explained that she would be enhancing the workshop with additional modules drawn from her years of experience in leadership development. It was sophisticated, professional, and completely fabricated. I called the venue immediately to make sure Eden hadn't somehow canceled my reservation. The manager confirmed that my workshop was still booked, but mentioned that someone named Eden Chen had called the day before asking about availability for the same date and time. She said she was your business partner and that there might be some scheduling conflicts, the manager explained. I told her your booking was confirmed and that any changes would need to come from you directly. Thank you for not making any changes, I said, feeling a mix of relief and terror. Eden Chen is not my business partner. If she calls again, please don't give her any information about my bookings. Of course. Should I be concerned about this? Should she be concerned? I was starting to think I should be calling the police. I spent the next hour going through my client list, calling everyone personally to warn them about the fake emails. 3 other people had received similar messages. One had already responded to Eden, expressing interest in switching to her services. By 10 a.m., I had a clear picture of what was happening. Eden wasn't just trying to steal my clients. She was systematically impersonating me, using my business name, my reputation, and my client relationships to build her own coaching practice. I called her again. This time, she didn't answer. I called her office. Her assistant said she was in meetings all day. I drove to her apartment. When Eden opened the door, she looked genuinely surprised to see me. She was dressed professionally, like she was heading to work, but it was 11 a.m. on a Wednesday. Why wasn't she at her marketing job? Harper, what are you doing here? We need to talk.
Now.
She stepped aside to let me in, and I noticed her laptop was open on the kitchen table. The screen showed what looked like a client intake form, but she closed it before I could read the details. I know what you're doing, I said. The fake emails, the impersonation, the client poaching. This has to stop. I honestly don't know what you're talking about. Eden, I have proof. I have the forwarded emails, I have testimony from clients you contacted, I have records of you calling my venue. This isn't some misunderstanding. This is deliberate sabotage. She sat down at her kitchen table, folding her hands in front of her like she was preparing for a business meeting. Harper, I think you're having some kind of breakdown. You're seeing conspiracies that don't exist. A breakdown? I pulled out my phone and showed her the fake email. Explain this. Explain how someone created an email address that looks exactly like mine and somehow knew intimate details about my workshop curriculum. She glanced at the screen without really looking at it. I don't know. Maybe you have a security breach. Maybe someone hacked your email. Maybe you sent it yourself and forgot about it. You think I sent emails to my own clients telling them you were taking over my business? I think you're under a lot of stress. Starting a business is hard, and maybe you're not handling it as well as you thought you would. The gaslighting was so smooth, so confident, that for a moment I almost believed her. Almost. Eden, I need you to listen to me very carefully. If you contact any of my clients again, if you send any more fake emails, if you make any more attempts to interfere with my business, I will call the police. What you're doing is fraud, identity theft, and business interference. It's illegal. She smiled then, a cold smile I'd never seen before. You'll call the police? And tell them what? That your sister is better at your job than you are? I'll tell them that you're impersonating me and stealing my clients. Good luck proving that. It's going to be hard to prove something that never happened. That's when I knew I was dealing with someone who had thought this through. Someone who had planned every move, anticipated every possible response, and prepared for exactly this conversation. Why are you doing this? I asked. Why are you trying to destroy me? I'm not trying to destroy you, Harper. I'm trying to help you realize that maybe this isn't the right path for you. Maybe you should go back to a regular job, something more stable, something you're actually qualified for. I am qualified. I spent 2 years getting certified. I built this business from nothing. And look how well that's working out for you. I left her apartment knowing that my sister was no longer my sister. She was my enemy, and she was much more dangerous than I'd ever imagined. The war was just beginning. 2 weeks later, I discovered Eden had been building her own coaching business for months. The realization hit me when I Googled her name and found a fully developed website for Eden's Wellness Solutions, complete with professional headshots, detailed service descriptions, and client testimonials that read suspiciously like reviews meant for my business. But what made me physically sick was the About Eden section. It was my story, rewritten with her as the protagonist. After years of helping friends and family members navigate life's challenges, Eden discovered her natural gift for coaching and transformation. Drawing from her extensive background in corporate leadership and her intuitive understanding of human psychology, she developed a unique approach that combines traditional coaching methodologies with mindfulness practices and practical skill building. Those were my words, my methodology, my approach that I'd spent months developing and refining. I screenshot everything before calling my lawyer. Yes, I'd hired a lawyer by then. Janet Morrison was a small business attorney who specialized in intellectual property cases. She'd taken one look at the evidence I'd compiled and told me I had a solid case for business interference and trademark infringement. The fake emails alone are enough for a cease and desist, Janet had said. But if she's actually stolen your business model and is using it to compete with you, we can pursue damages. Now, staring at Eden's website, I realized the situation was even worse than I'd thought. This wasn't impulsive sibling rivalry. This was a calculated plan to steal my entire professional identity. I called Janet immediately. She's been planning this for months, I told her, reading from Eden's website. She's got testimonials from clients I've never heard of, but they're describing work that sounds exactly like my methods. Forward me everything, Janet said. I want to see the website, the testimonials, all of it. If she's been using her copyrighted materials, we can add that to the lawsuit. Lawsuit. The word still felt surreal. 3 months ago, my biggest concern was whether I'd have enough clients to cover my business expenses. Now I was preparing to sue my own sister. But the website was just the beginning. Over the next few days, I discovered the full scope of what Eden had been doing. She'd created social media profiles for Eden's Wellness Solutions and had been posting content that looked suspiciously like my blog posts, reworded just enough to avoid direct plagiarism. She joined professional coaching groups and introduced herself as an experienced wellness coach with a background in corporate leadership. She'd even registered for the same continuing education conferences I'd been planning to attend. Most disturbing of all, she'd been telling people we were business partners who'd had a falling out. I learned this when my friend Katie called me, sounding confused and concerned. "Harper, I ran into Eden at the grocery store yesterday, and she told me the weirdest thing. She said you two had started a coaching business together, but that you decided to go separate ways because of creative differences. She made it sound like you'd been having some kind of professional disagreement." "That's not true. We were never business partners." "I know. That's why I'm calling. It didn't make sense." But Harper, she seemed really convinced of her version of events. She kept talking about how she'd helped you develop your business model and that she was disappointed you decided to compete with her instead of collaborating. This was Eden's masterstroke. She wasn't just stealing my business, she was rewriting history to make herself the victim. In her version of events, I was the one who'd betrayed her. "Katie, I need you to understand something. Eden and I were never business partners. I shared some ideas with her because she's my sister, but she had no role in developing my business. What she's doing now it's not okay." "I believe you," Katie said quietly. "But Harper, she was very convincing. If I didn't know you as well as I do, I might have believed her story." That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how many people Eden might have told her version of events to. How many potential clients might now think I was the one who'd stolen ideas from her. How many professional contacts might view me as unethical or unreliable. The next morning, I got a call that confirmed my worst fears. "Harper, this is Dr. Patricia Hayes from the Mindfulness Institute. I believe you applied for our certification program." "Yes, I did. I'm very interested in adding mindfulness coaching to my practice." "I see. Well, we had an interesting conversation yesterday with Eden Chen, who claims to be your former business partner. She expressed some concerns about your application." My stomach dropped. "What kind of concerns?" "She suggested that there might be some ethical issues with your coaching practice. She mentioned something about client confidentiality breaches and unauthorized use of proprietary methods. She recommended that we postpone your application until these issues are resolved." I felt like I was drowning. "Dr. Hayes, I need you to know that Eden Chin was never my business partner. She has no connection to my coaching practice whatsoever. Whatever she told you is completely false." "I see. This is quite unusual. Are you saying she lied to us?" "I'm saying she's been systematically trying to sabotage my business for months. She's impersonated me in emails to clients. She's stolen my business model, and now she's apparently trying to damage my professional reputation." There was a long pause. "These are serious allegations, Ms. Chen. Do you have documentation of these claims?" "I have extensive documentation. I'm currently working with a lawyer to address the situation. I think it would be best if we postponed your application until this matter is resolved. We can't risk associating the Institute with any kind of professional dispute." After I hung up, I sat in my car outside the grocery store where I'd been running errands and cried. Eden wasn't just trying to steal my clients or my business model. She was trying to destroy my entire professional future. I called Janet immediately. "She's contacted the Mindfulness Institute," I told her. "She's trying to prevent me from getting additional certifications." "That's defamation," Janet said. "And it's actionable. Harper, I think it's time to move forward with a lawsuit. Your sister isn't going to stop until she's completely destroyed your business." "How long will it take?" "Could be months, maybe longer. And it's going to be expensive." I thought about my savings account, already depleted from starting the business. I thought about my client base, shrinking every day as Eden's campaign continued. I thought about my family, who still had no idea what was happening. "Do it," I said. "File the lawsuit." That afternoon, I drove to my mother's house. It was time to tell her what Eden had been doing, even though I knew she wouldn't believe me. Mom was in her garden when I arrived, tending to the roses Dad had planted before he died. She looked up when she heard my car door slam, and I could see the worry in her eyes immediately. "Harper, honey, what's wrong? You look terrible." "Mom, I need to tell you something about Eden. And I need you to listen to me, really listen before you react." She stood up, brushing dirt from her gardening gloves. "What about Eden? She's been trying to destroy my business. She's been impersonating me, stealing my clients, and telling people we were business partners. I'm going to have to sue her." My mother's face went completely white. "Harper, that's impossible. Eden would never do something like that." "Mom, I have proof. I have documentation, witnesses, evidence. There has to be some misunderstanding. You girls have always been competitive, but this is insane." "It's not a misunderstanding. Eden has been systematically sabotaging my business for months. She's created a fake website using my business model. She's contacted my clients pretending to be my partner, and now she's trying to damage my professional reputation." "Have you talked to her about this?" "Of course I've talked to her. She denies everything. She acts like I'm having some kind of breakdown." Mom sat down heavily on her garden bench. "Harper, I think you need to consider the possibility that you're under a lot of stress. Starting a business is hard, and maybe what? Maybe I'm imagining all of this. Maybe you're seeing things that aren't there. Maybe you're so worried about competing with Eden that you're misinterpreting innocent actions." I realized in that moment that Eden had already gotten to her. My mother was choosing sides, and she wasn't choosing mine. "Mom, your daughter is about to be served with a lawsuit. That's not a misinterpretation. That's reality." "A lawsuit? Harper, you can't sue your own sister." "Watch me." I left her house knowing that I'd lost more than just my business. I'd lost my family too. But I was done being the victim. It was time to fight back. The lawsuit was filed on a Friday. Eden was served with papers at her office on Monday morning. I know this because she called me 37 minutes later, screaming so loud I had to hold the phone away from my ear. "Are you insane? You're actually suing me? Your own sister?" "You left me no choice," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "You've been systematically destroying my business for months. I gave you multiple chances to stop. This is going to destroy our family." Mom is devastated. "Everyone thinks you've lost your mind. Everyone thinks that because you've been telling them I'm unstable. But the truth is going to come out now, Eden. All of it." "What truth? That you couldn't handle a little competition? That you're so insecure you have to use lawyers to fight your battles?" I almost hung up then, but something in her voice stopped me. For the first time since this whole nightmare began, Eden sounded genuinely rattled. "Discovery is going to be very interesting," I said. "My lawyer is going to subpoena your email records, your website registration, your business bank accounts. We're going to trace every client you contacted, every email you sent, every lie you told. You won't find anything, because there's nothing to find. We'll see." But Eden's confidence was already cracking. "Harper, this is insane. We're family. We don't sue family." "You're right," I said. "Family doesn't try to destroy each other's lives. But you stopped being my family the moment you decided to steal my business." The line went dead. Within hours, my phone was ringing nonstop. First Mom, then my Aunt Carol, then my cousin Jennifer, then Eden's best friend Sarah. Everyone wanted to know how I could do this to my own sister. Everyone wanted to know if I'd considered therapy instead of litigation. Everyone wanted to know if I understood what this would do to our family. No one asked me what Eden had done to deserve being sued. The family meeting was held at Mom's house the following Sunday. I arrived to find Eden already there, sitting at the kitchen table with red-rimmed eyes and a box of tissues. Mom was stroking her hair, like she was 12 years old again. "Harper, sit down," Mom said. "We need to talk about this." "There's nothing to talk about. The lawsuit speaks for itself." "A lawsuit that could destroy both of your careers," Mom said. "Do you understand what you're doing? If this becomes public, if the media picks it up, both of you could be ruined." "Only one of us should be ruined," I said. "The one who's been committing fraud." Eden looked up then, and I saw something I'd never seen before in her eyes. Genuine fear. "I never committed fraud," she said quietly. "I've been trying to build my own business just like you. If there were some similarities in our approaches, that's because we're sisters. We think alike. We learned from the same sources. You created a fake email address to impersonate me. You stole my client list. You copied my business model word for word. That's not thinking alike, Eden. That's theft." "I never stole your client list." "Then explain how you knew Sarah Mitchell's contact information. Explain how you knew details about my workshop curriculum. Explain how you knew which clients to target." Eden's face was getting red. "Maybe you're not as careful with your information as you think you are. Maybe you left your laptop open when I was at your apartment. Maybe you talked about your clients more than you remember." There it was. The closest thing to a confession I was going to get. "So, you admit you went through my laptop?" "I admit that you're careless with confidential information. If I happened to see something when I was at your place, that's not my fault." Mom was looking back and forth between us like she was watching a tennis match. "Girls, this is getting us nowhere. Harper, what do you want? What would it take for you to drop this lawsuit?" "I want her to shut down her fake business. I want her to return any money she's made using my methods. I want her to contact every client she's stolen from me and tell them the truth. And I want her to publicly acknowledge that she had no role in developing my business." "That's ridiculous," Eden said. "I'm not shutting down my business. I've worked too hard to build it." "You've worked too hard stealing it, you mean?" "I didn't steal anything. Ideas can't be owned, Harper. If I developed a better version of your concept, that's called innovation, not theft." The gaslighting was so smooth, so confident, that for a moment, even I started to doubt myself. But then I remembered the fake emails, the impersonation, the systematic sabotage. "This isn't about innovation, Eden. This is about you deciding you were entitled to my work because you're older, because you're more successful, because you've always gotten everything you wanted." "That's not true. Isn't it? Tell me one thing in your entire life that you've had to work for. One thing that wasn't handed to you or taken from someone else." Eden stood up abruptly. "I'm not listening to this. You're having some kind of breakdown, and I'm not going to be your scapegoat." "Sit down," Mom said sharply. "Both of you. This is exactly what I'm talking about. You're both acting like children. I'm acting like someone whose business has been systematically sabotaged by her own sister," I said. "And she's acting like someone who's been caught. I haven't been caught doing anything wrong. Then why are you so afraid of discovery? Why are you so panicked about having your business records examined?" Eden's face went pale. "I'm not afraid of anything. I just don't want to waste money on lawyers for something this stupid." "Money you made using my business model?" "Money I made using my own skills and hard work." The argument continued for another hour, going in circles, getting nowhere. Mom kept trying to mediate, but she was clearly on Eden's side. She kept talking about family healing and professional counseling and finding a way to work together. Finally, I'd had enough. "I'm done," I said, standing up. "Eden, you have two choices. You can shut down your fake business and make this right, or you can see me in court. Those are your only options." "You're making a huge mistake," Eden said. "This is going to ruin both of us." "No," I said. "This is going to ruin one of us. The one who deserves to be ruined." As I walked to my car, I could hear them talking behind me. Mom's voice was soothing, consoling. Eden's voice was shaky, upset. I sat in my car for a long time before starting the engine. This was really happening. I was going to court against my own sister. I was going to have to prove that the person I'd trusted most in the world had tried to destroy me. The strangest part was how calm I felt. For months, I'd been confused, hurt, desperate to understand why this was happening. Now I understood. Eden had always been competitive, but she'd never had to compete with me before. The moment I succeeded at something, the moment I threatened her position as the family's golden child, she decided to eliminate the competition. She'd underestimated me, though. She'd assumed I'd be too loyal, too naive, too concerned about family harmony to fight back. She was wrong. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "How did the family meeting go?" I typed back. "They chose sides. It wasn't mine.
I'm sorry.
Are you ready to move forward?" I looked back at Mom's house, where my sister was probably crying about how unfair this all was, how she was the real victim, how I was destroying the family. "Yes," I typed. "I'm ready." The real fight was just beginning. The discovery process began 3 weeks later, and it was like watching Eden's carefully constructed lies unravel in real time. Janet had subpoenaed her email records, her website registration information, her business bank accounts, and her phone records. What we found was worse than I'd imagined. Eden hadn't just been stealing from me. She'd been documenting every conversation we'd ever had about my business, taking screenshots of my materials, and building a comprehensive file of everything I'd shared with her. She had photos of my business plan, copies of my certification documents, and detailed notes about my client strategies. But the most damning evidence was in her deleted emails. "She's not as tech-savvy as she thinks," Janet said, reviewing the digital forensics report. She deleted the incriminating emails from her main account, but she forgot about the automatic backups. "We have everything." The emails told the complete story. Eden had been planning this takeover for 8 months, starting just 2 weeks after I'd told her about my business idea. She'd researched my certification program, contacted my web developer to ask about my site structure, and even reached out to my business mentor pretending to be me to get advice about scaling strategies. Most shocking of all, she'd been coordinating with someone else. "Who's Marcus Williams?" Janet asked, pointing to a name that appeared in dozens of email exchanges with Eden. I'd never heard of him, but according to the emails, Marcus was a business consultant who'd been helping Eden plan what they called the transition. Their correspondence read like a military operation. "Phase 1 is client acquisition," one email read. "We need to establish trust and demonstrate superior value proposition before Harper realizes what's happening. Phase 2 is reputation management," another continued. "We need to position Harper as unstable or unreliable while establishing Eden as the more credible option. Phase 3 is market capture. Once we've secured the client base and damaged Harper's reputation, we can offer to buy out her business for a fraction of its value." They'd been planning to force me to sell my own business to my sister. I sat in Janet's office reading these emails, feeling like I was learning about a stranger. This wasn't the Eden I'd grown up with. This was someone who'd treated my life like a business acquisition, complete with strategies and timelines and contingency plans. "Harper, are you okay?" Janet asked. I wasn't okay. I was devastated. But I was also angry in a way I'd never been before. "I want to add Marcus Williams to the lawsuit," I said. "This was a conspiracy. We can definitely explore that. But first, we need to prepare for Eden's deposition. She's going to have to answer questions about all of this under oath." The deposition was scheduled for the following Thursday. I'd been dreading it, but after seeing the evidence, I was almost looking forward to watching Eden try to explain herself. She arrived at Janet's office looking like she was attending a funeral. Black dress, minimal makeup, hair pulled back severely. She'd brought her own lawyer, a sharp-looking woman named Rebecca Torres who specialized in business litigation. "Before we begin," Rebecca said, "I want to state for the record that my client denies all allegations and maintains that this is a personal dispute being mischaracterized as a business matter." "Noted," Janet said. "Let's start with the basics. Eden, can you describe your relationship with Harper?" "She's my sister. We've always been close." "And when did you first learn about her plans to start a wellness coaching business?" Eden's eyes flicked to me, then back to Janet. "I don't remember exactly. Maybe a year ago? She mentioned being interested in coaching. According to your email records, you sent Harper a message on March 15th of last year saying, 'Tell me more about this coaching thing. I want to understand your whole strategy.' Do you remember that conversation?" Eden's face flushed slightly. "I was just being supportive. I wanted to understand what she was planning." "And 2 days later, you sent an email to Marcus Williams saying, 'I've identified a business opportunity that could be very profitable. My sister has developed a coaching methodology that has strong market potential, but she lacks the business expertise to scale it properly.' Do you remember that email?
I
don't recall the specific wording. Would you like me to read it to you? Rebecca leaned forward. My client has already answered the question. But Janet wasn't done. Eden, can you explain why you registered the domain name EdenWellnessSolutions.com 3 weeks before Harper officially launched her business? I was exploring my own business opportunities. There's nothing wrong with that. Nothing wrong with using a business model that was nearly identical to your sister's. Business models can't be copyrighted. If we had similar ideas, that's not illegal. But impersonating someone else to steal their clients is illegal. Can you explain why you created the email address harperspathreins@gmail.com with a capital I instead of a lowercase l? Eden's lawyer whispered something to her, but Eden was already answering. I never created any fake email addresses. Then how do you explain this email sent from that address to Sarah Mitchell, telling her that you were Harper's business partner and that you'd be taking over her coaching sessions? I don't know anything about that email. You don't know anything about the email that Sarah Mitchell forwarded to Harper, which contained detailed information about Harper's coaching methodology that only you had access to? I said I don't know anything about it. The deposition continued for 4 hours. Janet methodically went through every piece of evidence: the fake emails, the stolen client list, the copied business model, the coordination with Marcus Williams. With each question, Eden's story became more and more implausible. By the end, she was claiming that she'd somehow independently developed a coaching methodology that was identical to mine, that she'd coincidentally chosen similar branding and marketing strategies, and that any clients who'd contacted her had found her through her own marketing efforts. It's possible, she said, her voice getting defensive, that some people confused our businesses because we have similar names and we're both in the wellness space. But that's not my fault. And it's just a coincidence that all of this confusion worked in your favor? I can't control what other people do. After she left, Janet and I sat in stunned silence for a few minutes. I've been doing this for 15 years, Janet finally said. I've never seen someone lie so confidently under oath. So what happens now? Now we prepare for trial. And Harper? After what I just witnessed, I'm confident we're going to win. But winning the lawsuit wouldn't give me back the months of stress, the damaged relationships, or the clients I'd lost. It wouldn't repair the trust I'd had in my family or erase the knowledge that my own sister had tried to destroy me. Still, as I drove home that evening, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Hope. Not hope for reconciliation or family healing, but hope for justice. Hope that the truth would finally come out. Hope that Eden would finally face consequences for what she'd done. The trial was scheduled for 6 weeks later. I had 6 weeks to prepare for the fight of my life. The trial began on a Tuesday morning in October. I'd barely slept the night before, going over my testimony one more time, trying to prepare for what felt like the most important performance of my life. But as I sat in the courtroom watching Eden and her lawyer at the defendant's table, I realized this wasn't a performance at all. This was about telling the truth. Judge Patricia Brennan was a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who'd built her reputation on business litigation. She listened to the opening statements with a kind of focused attention that made me feel like she was already seeing through Eden's lies. Your Honor, Janet began, this is a case about systematic business sabotage by a defendant who used her position as the plaintiff's sister to gain access to confidential information, then used that information to deliberately destroy her sister's business while building an identical competing enterprise. Rebecca Torres, Eden's lawyer, painted a very different picture. Your Honor, this is a personal dispute between siblings who both entered the same industry. Ms. Eden Chun has built a legitimate business using her own skills and expertise. Her sister's inability to compete in the marketplace is not grounds for a lawsuit. The first witness was Sarah Mitchell, the client who'd received Eden's fake email. She testified clearly and credibly about the phone call she'd received from Eden claiming to be my business partner. She knew specific details about my consultation with Harper, Sarah said. She knew my name, my contact information, and the specific issues I wanted to work on. She presented herself as someone who was authorized to speak on behalf of Harper's business. On cross-examination, Rebecca tried to suggest that Sarah might have been confused about the details, but Sarah was unshakable. I remember the conversation very clearly. She specifically said she was Harper's business partner and that she was taking over client services because Harper was having personal difficulties. The next witness was Maria Santos, the workshop attendee who'd received the fake email about the venue change. Then came Dr. Patricia Hayes from the Mindfulness Institute, who testified about Eden's attempt to sabotage my certification application. By the end of the first day, we'd established a clear pattern of impersonation and client interference. But I knew the real test would come when the digital evidence was presented. The second day began with testimony from Janet's computer forensics expert, Dr. Michael Chun, no relation. He walked the court through the fake email addresses, the deleted files, and the coordinated campaign with Marcus Williams. The defendant's email account shows a deliberate pattern of deception, Dr. Chun testified. She created multiple fake email addresses designed to impersonate the plaintiff. She systematically deleted incriminating evidence, and she coordinated with a third party to plan what they themselves called the transition, essentially a hostile takeover of the plaintiff's business. The most damaging evidence was the email chain between Eden and Marcus Williams. When Janet read those emails aloud in court, I watched Eden's face go pale. Phase 1 is client acquisition, Janet read. We need to establish trust and demonstrate superior value proposition before Harper realizes what's happening. Phase 2 is reputation management. We need to position Harper as unstable or unreliable while establishing Eden as the more credible option. Phase 3 is market capture. Once we've secured the client base and damaged Harper's reputation, we can offer to buy out her business for a fraction of its value. The courtroom was completely silent as Janet finished reading. Even Eden's lawyer looked stunned. Your Honor, Janet continued, this isn't a case of siblings competing in the same industry. This is a case of premeditated business sabotage, documented in the defendant's own words. When Eden took the stand on the third day, I barely recognized her. The confident, polished woman who dominated every family gathering for 34 years was gone. In her place was someone who looked defeated before she even began speaking. Ms. Chun, Janet began, you've heard the testimony about the fake email addresses created to impersonate your sister. Can you explain how those emails were sent if you didn't create them? I don't know, Eden said quietly. Maybe someone else created them. Someone else who had access to your sister's confidential client information? I don't know. Someone else who knew the specific details of your sister's business model? I don't know. Janet pulled out a printed email. This is a message you sent to Marcus Williams on April 3rd. You wrote, I've successfully contacted 3 of Harper's clients and convinced them to switch to my services. She still doesn't suspect anything. Did you write that email? Eden stared at the paper for a long time. I don't remember writing that. You don't remember, or you're claiming you didn't write it? I don't remember. Ms. Chun, you're under oath. Are you telling this court that you have no memory of coordinating with Marcus Williams to steal your sister's clients? Eden's voice was barely a whisper. I was just trying to build my own business. By stealing your sister's clients. I thought I could do it better. I thought I could provide better service. So, you admit you deliberately targeted your sister's clients? Eden's lawyer stood up. Objection, Your Honor. The witness is being badgered. I'll allow it, Judge Brennan said. The witness may answer. I thought I was helping them, Eden said, and for the first time in months, she sounded like my sister again. Confused, defensive, trying to justify the unjustifiable. I thought Harper was in over her head. I thought I could do better. So, you decided to destroy her business to save it? I wasn't trying to destroy anything. I was trying to help. Help by impersonating her? Help by stealing her clients? Help by trying to prevent her from getting additional certifications? I never tried to prevent her from getting certifications. Janet pulled out another document. This is a recording of your phone call to the Mindfulness Institute. Would you like me to play it for the court? Eden's face crumpled. I was worried about her. I thought she might not be ready for that level of responsibility. So you took it upon yourself to sabotage her application? I wasn't sabotaging anything. I was being responsible. Responsible to whom? To her clients.
To the industry.
To the family. And there it was. The real reason behind everything. Eden hadn't been trying to compete with me, or even to steal from me. She'd been trying to protect the family from the embarrassment of my potential failure. In her mind, she was the responsible one, the successful one, the one who should be running a business. I was just the little sister who'd gotten in over her head. Miss Chun, Janet said, did it ever occur to you to simply offer to help your sister instead of trying to destroy her business? I did try to help. I gave her advice. I shared my expertise. And when she succeeded anyway, you decided to steal her clients? Eden's voice broke. I didn't steal anything. I just thought I could do better. When Eden's testimony ended, the courtroom was silent. I looked at my sister, really looked at her, and realized that she genuinely believed she'd been trying to help. She'd convinced herself so thoroughly that she was the victim, the responsible one, the one who deserved to succeed, that she couldn't see the cruelty of what she'd done. That afternoon, Judge Brennan delivered her verdict. This court finds that the defendant engaged in systematic business interference, identity theft, and fraudulent representation. The evidence clearly shows a deliberate campaign to sabotage the plaintiff's business. While building a competing enterprise using stolen intellectual property and client information, she awarded me $75,000 in damages, ordered Eden to shut down her fake business, and required her to send written apologies to every client she'd contacted. But the money didn't matter. The apologies didn't matter. What mattered was that the truth had finally come out. As I left the courthouse that day, I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Free. 6 months after the trial, I was sitting in my newly expanded office space, looking at my client schedule for the week. 12 regular clients, a workshop booked solid with a waiting list, and 3 new corporate contracts. My business had not only survived Eden's sabotage, it had thrived. But the real victory wasn't financial. It was the moment I stopped looking over my shoulder, stopped second-guessing every decision, stopped wondering if I was good enough to succeed on my own. Eden had spent so many months convincing everyone, including me, that I was unstable, unreliable, not cut out for business ownership. The trial had proven otherwise. The judgment was final. Eden had been ordered to pay $75,000 in damages, plus my legal fees. She'd been required to shut down Eden's Wellness Solutions and send written apologies to every client she'd contacted. But more importantly, she'd been exposed for what she really was, someone who'd rather destroy her sister than see her succeed. The family fallout was swift and brutal. Mom had attended every day of the trial, sitting in the back row with a look of horrified disbelief as the evidence piled up. She'd heard Eden's own emails read aloud in court. She'd listened to the recordings of Eden impersonating me. She'd watched her golden child admit under oath that she'd deliberately sabotaged my business. After the verdict, Mom had approached me in the courthouse hallway. "Harper, I owe you an apology," she'd said, tears streaming down her face. "I didn't believe you. I thought you were being dramatic, maybe even having some kind of breakdown. I was wrong." "I know," I'd replied. "Eden convinced you I was unstable. She convinced a lot of people. How do you forgive something like this?" It was a question I'd been asking myself for months. How do you forgive someone who tried to destroy your life? How do you forgive someone who used your love and trust against you? How do you forgive someone who shows no remorse for what they've done? The answer, I'd learned, was simple. You don't. Eden never apologized. Not once. Not during the trial. Not after the verdict, not in the 6 months since. She'd moved to Portland 2 weeks after the judgment, claiming she needed a fresh start. But I knew the truth. She'd run away because she couldn't handle being exposed as the person she really was. She'd sent the court-ordered apologies to my clients, but they were form letters, clearly written by her lawyer. I regret any confusion that may have occurred. They began. No admission of wrongdoing. No acknowledgement of the harm she'd caused. Just legal language designed to fulfill the court's requirements while accepting no responsibility. The last communication I'd received from Eden was a text message 3 months ago. "I hope you're happy now. You got what you wanted." I'd stared at that message for a long time before deleting it. What I'd wanted was my sister back. What I'd wanted was an explanation that made sense. What I'd wanted was some sign that the person I'd loved my entire life felt even a shred of remorse for what she'd done. Instead, I'd gotten justice. And I'd learned that sometimes justice is all you can get. My phone buzzed with a text from Janet. "Saw the article about your corporate contract with Morrison Industries. Congratulations. You've built something amazing." The article. 3 days earlier, the local business journal had run a feature story about my company's expansion. "Local wellness coach overcomes adversity to build thriving practice," the headline read. The reporter had been fascinated by the story of how I'd survived a family member's attempt to destroy my business. "It taught me that success isn't just about having good ideas," I'd told the reporter. "It's about having the courage to protect those ideas from people who want to steal them, even when those people are supposed to love you." The article had generated 12 new client inquiries in 3 days. I walked to my office window and looked out at the parking lot where I'd first gotten that devastating cease and desist letter 8 months ago. The coffee shop was still there, still full of people pursuing their dreams over lattes and Wi-Fi. But I wasn't the same person who'd sat there crying, wondering how to fight someone who knew all my vulnerabilities. I'd learned something important about myself during those months of litigation and family warfare. I was stronger than I'd ever imagined. Strong enough to stand up to someone who'd tried to gaslight me into believing I was crazy. Strong enough to gather evidence, hire lawyers, and fight back strategically instead of emotionally. Strong enough to tell the truth even when it meant losing my family. The trial had been covered by the local media, and Eden's reputation in our small business community was permanently damaged. She'd been exposed as someone who'd steal from her own family, who'd lie under oath, who'd systematically sabotage another woman's business out of jealousy and entitlement. But the most satisfying part wasn't Eden's downfall. It was my own success. Every new client who chose my services, every workshop that sold out, every corporate contract I signed, it all proved that I'd been right to trust my instincts, right to believe in my abilities, right to fight for what I'd built. Marcus Williams, Eden's co-conspirator, had settled out of court for an undisclosed amount. He'd also agreed to a permanent injunction preventing him from contacting my clients or interfering with my business. His consulting practice had folded within 2 months of the trial. I'd heard through mutual acquaintances that Eden was working as a marketing coordinator for a nonprofit in Portland. A step down from her previous position, but probably the best she could do with her reputation in ruins. I felt no satisfaction in her professional decline, but I felt no sympathy either. She'd made her choices. She'd chosen to try to destroy me rather than celebrate my success. She'd chosen to lie and manipulate rather than compete honestly. She'd chosen to maintain her innocence rather than apologize for the harm she'd caused. Those choices had consequences. My phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. The caller ID showed a number I didn't recognize. Harper's Path Wellness, this is Harper. Hi, this is Jennifer Morrison from Morrison Industries. I wanted to follow up on our conversation about the executive coaching program. Jennifer Morrison, the CEO whose company had just signed my biggest corporate contract ever. The woman who'd read the Business Journal article and called me because she was impressed by my resilience. Of course. How can I help you? I've been thinking about what you said in that article, about protecting your ideas from people who want to steal them. I think that's exactly the kind of mindset our executives need to develop. I'd like to discuss expanding our contract to include individual coaching sessions for our senior leadership team. After I hung up, I sat back in my chair and smiled. Eden had tried to destroy me, but she'd actually made me stronger. She'd forced me to document every aspect of my business, to defend my methods, to prove my competence in ways I never would have had to otherwise. The lawsuit had been expensive, emotionally devastating, and painful beyond description. But it had also been the making of me as a businesswoman. I'd learned to fight for what was mine. I'd learned to trust my instincts even when everyone else doubted me. I'd learned that sometimes the people who are supposed to love you most are the ones who'll hurt you worst. Most importantly, I'd learned that I didn't need anyone's permission to succeed. As I packed in my office that evening, I thought about the question Mom had asked me in the courthouse. How do you forgive something like this? The answer was that you don't forgive. You don't forget. You don't reconcile. You just win.